Greetings and salutations, tube dwellers. Welcome to Starcraft 2. I'm going to be doing something special today, extra specially special. Not a first-person video, not just a commentary of a replay, but a commentary of two replays, back-to-back. The same matchup, twice in a row. They are two games that I played the same day, and I'm not going to outright spoil it, but I will say that one game features a very bad example of what you should do in this matchup, and the other game features some pretty solid examples. And it is a very huge difference between my play and the two. I'm not even sure what inspired me to play differently the two different times. I just kind of did, and then watching the replays later, I saw it and thought it was kind of interesting. Also, welcome to Season 8. There is a new 1 versus 1 map, Condemned Ridge. Actually, can I take a look at that? Yeah, surely, here it is. Condemned Ridge. I guess this isn't the best view. That one is slightly better. So it is a very large map. It is not quite the size of Tal'Darim Altar, but it is pretty reminiscent of Tal'Darim Altar. The bases that make up your potential fourth are a little bit more pushed towards the center, which in Tal'Darim Altar they'd be off back here, way back tucked behind your main. And then it does recognize reflectional symmetry in that the line of symmetry is right across the middle of the map. This whole side of the map is mirrored directly over to this whole side of the map. So positions pretty much all around have pretty good ground distances. I've only played 2 matches so far on this map, and they have both been cross-spawn. So I don't know that that is a requirement. I would actually assume it's not. But interesting map anyway. I actually like that they're moving towards larger macro maps, and probably one of the most notable features of this one is this high ground with a ramp right behind your third. That should make harassment on the third quite easy. Anyway, enough about that map. Neither of the games that I'm getting ready to show you is on that map, so let's jump into the first. My first opponent is going to be a Platinum League Protoss. He is a rank 11 now, although note that I'm looking at his profile a day after playing the match. So it's quite possible he wasn't quite that high of a rank. And I'm going to be playing Terran on my secondary account. So this is the account that's in Platinum, and this is the account that I either race pick Terran or Zerg with. I tend not to random on this account anymore, although I did at one point in time. So here I present to you the Terran vs. Protoss between Highest Templar, my secondary account, and Mr. Leo. This will be on Cloud Kingdom, and I'm not going to reveal which game this is, although you may be able to spot just by how the game unfolds whether or not this is the quote-unquote good or the quote-unquote bad game. I am also going to use a little bit of speed throughout this. This game, I think, is the longer of the two. I don't exactly remember, but together they're going to make a fairly long video. Now, part of the reason I'm doing this video is to test some of my recording settings. Recently, I've had a lot of PC troubles. I originally thought it was heat issues with my processor, and then heat issues with my graphics card, both of which I was having. I tend not to pay attention to my computer unless it's having some issues, and then I start digging into things. And I was having some heat issues with both the processor and graphics card. I've sorted those out, and I'm still having some issues while rendering video. So I've been crippled as far as uploading goes lately. But I'm hoping to get back into the swing of that. I've made some changes. I'm actually recording to a different hard drive right now. I think that's my final problem. It appears I may have had a couple problems in tandem. But this is going to be a nice test. I plan it to be around a half an hour, we'll see, of my rendering capability. And hopefully, if I do have things sorted out, I will get back to my daily or near daily uploading directly after. So we're going to have a pretty regular opening. You guys already see that I have a barracks down. It went down on 12, and I do not have a gas, indicating that I'm going to go with something expand heavy, or I guess possibly some huge barracks all in, although that's really rare, especially against Protoss, when one sentry can destroy your push, and it's an all-in push. It tends not to be a great push. The Protoss as well, Mr. Leo, is going to be opening pretty regularly. He got his gateway, by the looks of his chrono boost, around 13, and it looks like he has used another chrono boost after it even. He's opening the gas, as you might expect, and it looks like he plans to skip this first zealot, although we'll see in just a moment. I am, since since it's looking fairly macro-oriented from me, and that indicates that we may have a fairly slow early game, because Protoss tends not to pressure in the early game, unless, again, it's some kind of crazy all-in. I'm going to go ahead and jump to a ×2 for a short period of time. It does look like he decided to get the Zealot, and if we check our worker count, we're at pretty even, normal counts right now. Mine is a little bit lower than his because I had to stop to get the orbital. The Mule makes up for it, though. He's going to get his research going, and how constant is he going to be with his chrono boosts? It looks like not incredibly, but I expect he'll probably dump a few more on there. Oh, and what's this probe doing? Ah, the money is stacking up. It looks like he's going straight for a Nexus off one gate. Not uncommon. And given that I opened with no gas, my command center is down quite a bit ahead of his. I am getting the gas to follow up, and I'm putting on a second barracks. We'll see if I increase it from there. It looks like an engineering bay, so I'm doing quite a greedy build. I'm going to try to do some incredibly macro-oriented play, it looks, else I wouldn't be getting an engineering bay quite that soon. And I will note that Terran, my Terran builds are not really well hammered out. They're platinum level, go figure. 3 gates and a robo opening for Mr. Leo. So this may not be the most ideal times to get everything. It just happens to be when I thought it would be a good idea to whip them out. Oh, it looks like I may have. Can I find it? Yep, sure enough, I have a Marine here with a kill. Leo did have a Stalker on the front. I guess since there's a little bit occurring, we'll go ahead and slow that back down to faster. He did have a Stalker on the front. It looks like I was able to take that out. Now, am I able? Ooh, I did not get the spot on that. So, check it out. I saw the pylon at the front, and I saw that he was very sentry heavy, but I didn't see the Nexus itself. That could be concerning. However, seeing that sentry count and seeing the pylon, it should be a safe assumption that he has an expansion coming. And here I'm ramping up my barracks. It looks like I'm going to go ahead and get the armory out, trying to time that to go straight into +2. I kind of like to see that if you start out with a macro upgrade focus, you should continue that macro upgrade focus. I like to see that I'm playing into that. He's going to do some scouting with his observer. Let's see where these worker counts have progressed to. It's 32 to 38. Given that I have 2 bases, I'll have 2 mules at any given time. I actually have 3 right now, so that shows a little bit of bad macro on my part. That means I'm not casting mules as quickly as I can be. It means I've got one here that a little bit of overlap between some. But given that I have 2 mules, I might call myself a little bit ahead of him. He's only got a 6 worker advantage, and mules make up a little bit more than that. Each one makes up between 4 and 6. It depends on if they're close or a far patch. And here you can see my minerals above his, but his gas above mine. Protoss is probably the race that can dump the gas the fastest. Their tech units, especially things like the Sentry, that in small to mid-sized numbers are really, really useful. They can just absolutely dump gas in those and get rid of it real quickly. So it looks like I may have sniped an observer there. I do not recall. I do have 3 units killed, one being the Stalker, one I think being a probe, and I think there was an observer here I scanned just a second ago. However, I missed that. And it does look like he has a very good view of things, so he saw when these barracks were starting. That should be a safe assumption that it was an observer. And with the observer, he saw basically everything. He saw that I have a reactor going on my starport, and he saw that I was pretty reactor heavy. I believe. Actually, let me double check that. Yeah, he saw the reactors building. So he knows it's probably going to be something marine-centric. I misappropriated my gas in this build, actually. I'm getting the +2 upgrade. I like to see how quick that is. And I meant that for these 2 tech labs to allow me to get combat shield and stim very quickly. But that wasn't necessarily the case. As you can see, combat shield still isn't researching and stim is. I do believe I'm at about 2 base saturation, as is he. So my income's going to be just ahead of his because the mules again. But we're looking pretty even. The food count, he's a little ahead of me. That's probably mostly due to a couple supply blocks. As a matter of fact, he's supply blocked right now. He does have a slight worker count, and I would expect to see a slight army advantage. And yeah, I would call that an army advantage. I've got a little bit more invested in minerals, but he has a little bit more invested in gas. Probably mostly on these Sentry and the Immortal, given that I'm so ridiculously marine heavy. And it looks like I'm putting together a push with +2. My +2 is about to complete. I've got just a few Marauders, and I'm moving out with my first couple medevacs and a very large pack of Marines. Oh, and he gets his first Colossus out with some clutch timing. He does not quite have Thermal Lance yet. but it is very close, and he does have +1. Colossi absolutely roast Marines, even without the range upgrade. 6 range is more than the Marines 5, and they do, oh my god, the miss micro, the humanity! A whole medevac full of Marines. That is a very troublesome hit. In fact, if we look at the units lost, me picking off a sentry for free, a zealot for free, and a stalker for free, oh yeah, and the observer for the cost of a scan, puts us about even in me having lost that medevac. So that's not ideal. I probably should have set the medevac up before I was right here. I've kind of been playing around with the tactic lately in Terran versus Protoss, and you guys saw my match history, or at least my profile. I don't necessarily play a whole lot, so saying playing around, maybe that indicates that I play too many games. But I've been playing around with the tactic where you stage your whole army, drops, medevacs, everything you have, right here at the front, and you make him aware of it, and then stay at the front for a while, and then do things like scan these observers. Like a matter of fact, see this little flicker, and it looks like I've caught on to it. Am I gonna get it? Wait for it. Where's the scan? I think I'm waiting for it. I know there's one there. There it is. And I take the observer down. I've been playing around with staging, taking out his observers, making sure he can't see my army, but he knows it's there, and then loading up my medevacs and going around the side for a drop. So that's kind of the thought that I had in my mind, but I did something horrible. I got, I don't know, too excited or something and tried to go straight in here and gave him a very easy pick-off on that medevac. I think that was probably mostly a result of me not really having a good feel for where his army was. So we're going straight into the macro game hard, and it looks like our food counts are very similar, and I'm getting that +3 weapons. Now, with this build, I knew I was being greedy. I went straight into this engineering-based stuff, and I went into it heavy. And I figured that I would just be able to be a powerhouse Terran and take it up to about 3 base, get my 3 damage upgrades, and then just really start putting the pressure on. I thought that I would be able to be greedy enough in the macro that I wouldn't have to do pressure. Right now it's kind of the metagame norm that Terran does pressure to a defensive Protoss, as the Protoss macros up everything he wants. And then the Terran, you know, using that pressure, weakens his Protoss opponent, and comes in eventually for the killing blow, while not necessarily being so macro-oriented himself, being more aggression-oriented. Here you see me trying just a totally different style. I haven't been putting pressure on at all. I tried a little bit of a double prong with that poor medevac micro, and then other than that, I've been just investing into my economy, investing into my infrastructure in barracks. I think I'm up to 8 now. No, yeah, that is 8. And I could probably go a little higher than that, especially seeing that my money's starting to get up to the 1K range. And I've been getting upgrades pretty quickly. I've been totally neglecting armor. I probably could have done the second engineering bay, looking back on this game now. And I haven't gotten any Viking upgrades. Actually, yeah, I have. Wow. That really surprises me. That's kind of out of blue nowhere. I actually kind of like to see that, because I'm going to rely really heavily on my Vikings, and I don't have a lot of them. So it looks like I'm scouting around. I'm actually being really risky with these Vikings. But it looks like I'm just kind of checking. I'm trying to find his Colossi, taking some pot shots, actually taking one out and not losing a Viking. So that was a great engagement, but he still has 3. 3 is enough to very easily deal with Marauders, so long as there's another army, something else, Marine, Stalker, Sentries for the Marauders to shoot at while the Colossi wipe them out. 3 is definitely enough to deal with infinite Marine count, depending on how you engage, depending on how big the Marine's arc is. And it looks like I'm focusing on that pretty hard, focusing on keeping that arc. This looks like it's not such a good... Ooh, and he's back up to 4 even. Yeah, and I lost... Not only lost a Viking, but lost a lot of hit points on Vikings. That is not ideal. We are both maxed. He is on 1-1, and I have 3 damage. So I'm thinking that this is a great time to engage. That stim was such a huge mistake. Because of the Vikings I've produced, I have not produced many medevacs. And I just stemmed a huge bio army. That is going to take forever to catch back up. It looks like I am doing a drop. That's kind of a weird position for the drop, but it did the trick. It got him out of position. Oh my god! Oh, I have a pit in my stomach. Oh my god, I feel nauseous. Oh, I think I'm gonna throw up. Oh no. Wow. Oh, the storms. He got his High Templar out with perfect timing. He had a chunk of High Templar there, and I thought I could break off a very small bit of my army and go deal with him. Oh, no, no, no. I took huge damage, and now I have a huge bio army with not nearly enough medevacs. And I am in really sad shape. If we get a couple counts here, we have pretty equal worker counts. I'm sure our economy is fairly similar. Our army counts even. I have about as much on the field right now as he does. And I have better upgrades. It's just that I've lost so much health. And I'm engaging in pieces. You just can't do big straight up engagements like this. As Terran against Protoss, you almost have to zerg the Protoss. It kind of sounds silly. And I'm even getting kind of a good angle on his Colossi here, but that stem was painful. He took out my planetary like it was his job. Of course it was, you know, kind of the job of his army. And though I do work through most of his Colossi, I don't even know if I get them all. Do I get them all? Yeah, it looks like the Vikings allow me to get them all. He absolutely smashes me. Once he gets his pieces of tech up, oh, and a little bit of frustration from me. Once a Protoss gets their key pieces of tech up, and especially before I have my key pieces up, I literally didn't have a single ghost. You just can't engage. You can't engage like that. What I needed to do is, when I needed to not overstim it first, but when I was up here, kind of keeping map presence, I needed to do double prong drops. I needed to drop over here, maybe drop around the back like I did here, and way up here in the back. And maybe even, you know, patrol some units over here to the 4th, maybe even over to this side, just to make sure he's not taking any nexuses, any additional bases. But there you have me attempting to play a very macro-oriented style in Terran vs. Protoss, and it just didn't work out. I didn't have the pressure, and I really think that's the key to it. I didn't have the aggression that you need against Protoss as Terran. Ew, filthy, filthy play. Ew. So let's take a look at the polar opposite in this exact same matchup. This next match is going to again feature me, Highest Templar, against a Platinum level Protoss. This guy rank 13 again. This is the rank he is now, not necessarily the rank he was when he played the game, but it kind of shows that he's rank 13, the other guy's rank 11. They're probably pretty close in skill level. They probably at least play, you know, a comparable amount. So let's jump into this one. In the red trunks, Michanza playing Protoss in the top right. And in the blue trunks, Highest Templar playing Terran in the top left of Shakuris Plateau. This is, I want to call it one of the smaller macro maps. To me, this map feels very compact. However, it's got a really small choke on your natural, and generally you just see macro games happen. I kind of, just a number of things, given that your third is not, this kind of feels close, but it's really open, and it's in a position where if you want to defend this base, you have to have map presence here and here, and then you also have to have map presence here to defend your natural. It just does not feel safe. This doesn't feel like an incredibly macro-oriented map, but it's kind of been dubbed such. So, I'll just shut up my little inner voice, I suppose, and, you know, accept that it's a macro map. Maybe I'll just use the metagame of it being a macro map against whoever I play on it, and not necessarily play super macro-oriented. Now, that's not to say that I have no plans of expanding ever, that I'm going to do some cheesy one base all-in. That is definitely not the case. I try to make that never the case. But I tend not to do plays like what I just now tried to do on Cloud Kingdom on maps like this. Of course, I've said this many times before, I think every time that I've done a replay or any kind of cast on this map, you cannot spawn vertical to your opponent. So wherever you spawn, your opponent has to be on the opposite side of the map, either directly across like we are now, or down here. So there I am going straight across map to check, and then I'll eventually be coming up here, and you can see my SCV's rally points. Just doing a once around the base. I want to get a look at both gases. I want to get a glance at his energy to get a rough feel of how much he's chrono boosting probes. Generally, you can tell if a Protoss is going to try to do some warp gate pressure based on whether or not they chrono boost out a lot of probes. If they only chrono boost probes once, and if at this point in time when you're in their base they have like half a nexus or more worth of energy, they're probably going to be dumping a lot of chrono boost into that warp gate, and they'll be trying to put pressure on very quickly, which is a very good thing to do against 1-Rax expands, much like what I did in the last game. I did open with gas, and I opened with a very normally timed gas, 13 right after my 12 racks. And then I put the supply depot down, so I didn't put the supply depot down to block his worker. However, it did happen to do that. It stopped him from getting in there. He has not seen anything on my base yet, and he's not going to. He's not going to be able to see whether or not I have gas. He didn't even see when this supply depot finished, so he might assume that it is a gasless build and that I'm doing some expansion. I now have my SCV on patrol. It looks like I'm going to be cutting it close. When this stalker comes out, this SCV's life is forfeit. So if I can, I need to get him out of there before the stalker comes out. A good rule of thumb to use is when the core comes up, generally you can do about one more round around his base and then you need to leave. If he's chrono boosting this gateway, you probably need to leave before even doing that round. Oh, and what's this? He thinks he's going to, I guess, just sit, not come across the map. I thought he was going to be fresh with that zealot come get in my face. But it looks like no, he's just going to take the watchtower, give himself a little feeling of comfort, some safety, and he's not watching this probe. There's no way he can be, because that makes 2 scouting probes, and that don't make sense. I'm going to bring the SCV back home. Ooh, how insidious. A starport, and a factory building a tech lab, and a second gas. What could this possibly be? Oh, and he has 2 gates and a nexus. He actually did the nexus before the second gate, so he's doing a very macro-oriented build, much like the Protoss did in the last match, and I am not at all doing the same build that I did in the last match. I am doing something much more cheesy. It looks like, especially by my gas count here, that I am going for a cloaked Banshee. Notice that I haven't cut any SCVs. If we were to look at this worker count, it's at very similar numbers to the last game. 21 to 26 puts me at about 4 behind, which is about how far you get behind when you stop building workers to create the orbital command. And sure enough, there it is, the cloak, the Banshee, the rally. Where could it be? Directly behind the mineral line. He is now taking his other gas, and likely he'll be ramping into some sort of tech very shortly. 2 more gateways, sure enough. He's going to go up to 4 gate. This is not uncommon. Ooh, and a forge. Interesting. So he's playing this out a little bit differently than the last guy did, than Leo. He instead of going 3 gate and a robo, is going to go 4 gate and a forge. If you see an opening like this, it indicates something Zealot Templar centric. Whereas if you see an opening like Leo, it indicates some robo centric play. So Colossi, maybe even Warp Prism Harass. It looks like I'm trying to do a fake-out play here. I put a bunker at the bottom of my ramp, even though I'm not building a command center there yet, even though I have no reason to defend anything, you know, beyond this point. However, he's seen this bunker, and that will likely indicate to him that I have a command center. He'll probably especially assume that the command center is being built up here to be floated down later. So that is a nice little trick. We're staying about the same distance in workers, however, he has that second base up. Ooh, and now he's getting the robo. I like to see this. It's safe. Even if you get a forge, a lot of times you won't blindly build cannons back here, and if a cloaked Banshee just shows up, it could be a lot of trouble. So having this allows you to chrono boost out a very quick observer if you need it, and allows you to respond well to things that you didn't expect to happen. It looks like he is going very quickly with the armor. Not that I can see this, but if I did see this, it would indicate that that he's going to have a very high number of zealots, which means I should skew towards Marines. And let the harass begin. It looks like Banshee number 2 over here was doing the second shot every time. But we are getting a nice number of kills. Oh, and the cloak goes down. I'm going to use the cloak. I'm going to continue to focus on probes if I can keep my attention span up. I'm going to hit a single sentry, and it looks like I hung out just a little too long. He is going to take a Banshee, so it looks like the harass is over. 10 workers, that's a decent number. However, I invested heavy in Cloak and Banshees, so if we take a look at Army right now, we're at a very similar worker count, and we have a very similar Army count. He has an armor upgrade, and I have no such upgrade. A matter of fact, I have not started either of my primary infantry upgrades either. It looks like I do have Concussive Shell, and I'm starting Combat Shield now, and it looks like I'm getting the Engineering Bay to go into that. Did I see the Forge? I believe I saw the forge. Yeah, I saw the forge. So I know he's probably going to be getting upgrades, so I want to do the same. I want to make sure I at least don't fall behind. But that was a decent harass. I would call it a little bit in my favor. Honestly, 10 workers, it feels like a lot. And I'm sure he feels like he's got to be boosting probes out right now, although he's not. I would feel like I had to catch up. I would feel like I had to boost probes really hard right now. And you can see he's staying off of gas, so he's focusing on minerals. He knows he needs to do some catch up in economy. I would call that a slight advantage, although not huge considering that I built 2 Banshees. I no longer have one of them, and I invested in Cloak, and now he's got a sure counter to Cloak. I wonder if that worked. I was taking a medevac out by itself up across the watchtower. I should have jumped to his camera real quick to see if he was looking at that, because it'd be interesting to see. I guess I could tell. Yeah, here we go. He is moving his forces into his main, so it looks like I did a little fake out there with my medevac to try to get him to think I was doing a drop, and it looks like it may have worked, which is cool. I like to see just any action I do forcing actions out of my opponent. The more actions you can force, the fewer actions he gets to do that he wants to do. The fewer actions he can just do that he feels are necessary. Ooh, the robotics bay. I know where he's going. He's thinking Colossi, so he's not going to do a Zealot Templar mix. I would say that the investment in this forge and the armor upgrade is a mistake in this build, especially given that once he gets done with this damage, he's not going to have a Twilight because he's going to be investing all of his gas into Colossi, and he's not going to be able to follow it up with a quick 2-2 or 2 armor or 2 weapons, any of them. So I would say that the forge could have been cut out of this build, and it would have been a little bit cleaner for him. Me as a diamond player, I can probably give him that. I can probably give him that criticism and be a little bit critical of him. I'm doing a scan to see what things look like. I did see these forces sitting over here near the wall, and I have medevacs which let me see the high ground, so I could potentially run up and sneak in some damage. Looks like I'm going to try to do just that. I did get 1 sentry, almost 2. If I could have sniped both sentries there, it would have been an amazing pickup. And in this situation, as compared to the last game, I have a much smaller army, and I actually have more medevacs whenever I stem the whole thing. So I can kind of afford to stem this whole pack of infantry, whereas I couldn't in the last game. I had a gigantic force of infantry, and I really couldn't afford to stem. He's going to use his high ground. It looks like I'm not totally confident. I did get to pick off a pylon, which is keeping him in a kind of nasty food position. Now here's something else that I've been toying around with lately that's not as easy to do as it looks. Picking up infantry on the other side of force fields. To do this without losing a lot of firing time on your infantry, you actually have to move the medevac by itself up into position, then grab the infantry and right-click the medevac. That's the best way I've found to do it. And you can see there I wasn't as smooth as some of the pros, but I did save some of my infantry, and the trade was not even. I did good. I did good being on my side of those force fields and not having much infantry on his side. And it looks like I've repaired up this 6-kill Banshee. I'm going to come back in to try to get something else done. Now that's gonna segregate his forces, and it looks like he even did it by just doing a drag select. So there for a second he pulled an Immortal out of position. And I'm going to use that to go back and hammer on the front. Now I stayed low enough on his ramp there that it's kind of tough to get force fields in position. He got some pretty decent ones, but I got some pretty decent rally. And you can see by this army count that mineral-wise I am staying pretty well ahead of him. Now I'm going to pull a little bit of a risky move here, just moving this close to the high ground, but again, these medevacs let me have vision, and so kind of allow me to be sure that I'm okay. And this is huge. Just that little bit of harassment. It might seem like, well, pylons, what kind of a pickup is that? And when you're in the game, you can't ever tell for sure that you had this effect, but look at how hard he was food capped right there. And now all of a sudden he's got to sink minerals into these pylons. So that, I think, was a huge momentum killer for him, and it really allowed my momentum to take me to another level. You can see here I'm jumping up into the 120 food range, whereas he's still struggling to get to 100. I'm poking around with the Banshee a little bit more. It looks like I determined that I can't really do anything there. And I now have +1 damage, and I'm going very quickly into +2. So he has hit the ceiling that I mentioned earlier. He's only just now putting this Twilight Council out. you can't really afford that earlier when you're going Colossi. And he is getting the range and the decent Colossi count. He's keeping chrono boosts on the robotics facility. But you just can't sneak in constant upgrades when you're going Colossi unless you're doing something like a quick third, or unless you're going real pure. You're cutting out all these sentries, or at least most of them, or maybe cutting out these immortals. Here we go. Loading up a drop. It looks like I have the bulk of my forces here. Oh, and this is beautiful. So I'm going to catch the only thing on his high ground being his Colossi, and it doesn't look like I quite got his Colossi, but I did damage to one, pushed them out of position, and got my forces out, and that's going to let me just crack the front wide open. This little bit of micro, the pulling the Colossi back, had him concerned enough that that he didn't want to, you know, he didn't have the APM to come down here and defend his front properly. He didn't get the right force fields off. Oh, and I'm going to just start sniping the Colossi. I'm going to hit the Nexus. I can use the stems because I've got such a big medevac count, because I didn't have to respond to his Colossi with Vikings the way I did in the last match. And I even got to take this drop even deeper into his base. Voila! The crescendo of the polar opposite of styles. I lost like 20 food, and I have 100 left over, just because I played the style differently. Even going into that, there wasn't a huge food differential. He didn't have like 50 food difference. He was about 20 food down on me. But and some of that is even in rally, so it looks like my macro got pretty bad towards the end of the engagement. That is probably my weakest point with Terran. Oh, and it looks like I was really expecting trouble with the Colossi. I whipped out another 2 starports so that I could get a good Viking count fast. Believe it or not, this game was actually played before the game you guys saw first. Later in that same day, I went on from playing at this level of brilliance to go play that just horrible attempt at a macro fest. Oh, it's just so atrocious. But I think that's a really, really solid example. Those two games in comparison, it's a really solid example of the contrast of the effect that the different styles have on your opponent. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope you guys have enjoyed my analysis, and I hope you guys continue to enjoy videos from me in the future by pressing that subscribe button in the top left. Makes it so easy to follow me, makes it so easy to see everything I do, even though I haven't been doing a lot of stuff lately. I really hope to get back to constant, steady content, and hope to have to stop re-recording. I've recorded the end of Act 3 in Diablo 3 3 different times now, and that's a lot of 3s. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. See you around.